Hello, survivors. Thanks for joining us today. Before we begin, if you enjoy our stories, please subscribe to the channel. It really means a lot. Also, tell us in the comments which city you're listening from. It's great to see how far our community reaches. Now, let's start the story. Every instinct I have, every bit of training hammered into me over 8 years on the job screams help. See someone hurt, you run towards them. See someone bleeding, you apply pressure. See someone not breathing, you start compressions. It's muscle memory, ingrained deeper than my own name sometimes. But that Tuesday morning, everything flipped. The training, the instinct, the oath I took, it all became poison. Because they told us not to help them. And the hardest part? The horrifying part? They were right. My name is Mark, and I was working Unit 7 out of Station 3 in Columbus when the world decided to eat itself. My partner Chloe and I were just finishing up paperwork from a fender bender on I-71, standard stuff, when the radio started acting weird. Not static exactly, more like overloaded. Dispatch calls were stacking up, tripping over each other. Multiple assaults, unexplained violent incidents, requests for police backup at the hospital, all clustered downtown. Sounds like a full moon kind of morning, Chloe joked, stretching in the passenger seat. She was younger than me, barely. 2 years on, but sharp, unflappable, usually. Then the first code black came over the radio. We didn't have a code black, never heard of it. Dispatch, repeat last transmission? Chloe keyed the mic. Unit 7, all units, code black is in effect for downtown Columbus area. Nature of threat, unspecified contagion. CDC liaison advises extreme caution. Maintain distance from individuals exhibiting erratic or aggressive behavior. Do not engage unless absolutely necessary. Do not transport potential infected to hospitals. Await further instruction. The dispatcher's voice was tight, professional, but underneath, raw panic bled through. Unspecified contagion? What the hell is that? I muttered, pulling the ambulance over near the on-ramp. Sirens wailed in the distance, more than I'd ever heard at once. Maybe some kind of chemical leak, bioterror? Chloe suggested, but her eyes were wide, scanning the highway. More calls flooded the radio. Police officers requesting backup, reporting suspects down but still moving. Reports of cannibalism. That word hit like a physical blow. Cannibalism. Then, the message that would define the next 12 hours. The message that went against every fiber of my being. All EMS units, repeat, all EMS units. New directive from Emergency Operations Center. Confirmed by State Health Department liaison. Regarding code black subjects exhibiting aggression, altered mental status, or apparent post-mortem animation, do not attempt resuscitation. Do not. Provide medical aid. Do not transport. Maintain perimeter. Observe and report only. Repeat, do not help them. Chloe stared at the radio, then at me. Observe? Post-mortem animation? Mark, are they saying zombies? It sounded insane, like something out of a cheap horror movie. But the frantic calls, the police reports, the sheer volume of chaos, erupting across the city, something unprecedented was happening. Keep the doors locked, I said, my hand hovering over the gear shift. Let's get back to station, figure out what's going on. Too late. As I started to pull back onto the highway, a car swerved erratically across 3 lanes, crashing head-on into the concrete median. Steam hissed from the crumpled hood. We were the closest unit. Instinct took over. I flipped on the lights and sirens, driving along the shoulder to reach the wreck. Unit 7 responding to MVA I-71 northbound near Broad Street, I radioed, already grabbing my jump bag. Negative, Unit 7. Dispatch crackled back instantly. Maintain code black protocol, do not engage. Report location and observe only. Dispatch, we have a major MVA, likely injuries, I argued, pulling up 50 yards from the wreck. Mark, look, Chloe whispered, pointing. The driver's side door of the crashed sedan opened. A man pulled himself out, moving stiffly. His face was obscured by the deployed airbag, but his movements were wrong. Jerky, uncoordinated. He stumbled away from the car, seemingly oblivious to the severe damage and his own likely injuries. Then he turned. His face was a mask of blood, skin unnaturally pale beneath it. He fixed his gaze on a woman standing beside her stalled car. Nearby, cell phone pressed to her ear. He let out a low, guttural moan and started lurching towards her. "Dispatch, we have, one individual exhibiting code black criteria at the MVA scene." I stammered into the radio, watching in horror, as the man broke into that terrifying broken gear run. "He's approaching a civilian. Unit 7, maintain position, do not intervene. Police units en route, ETA unknown." "We can't just sit here," Chloe exclaimed, reaching for her door handle. "Chloe, no, the directive!" I grabbed her arm. Every part of me wanted to jump out, to tackle the infected driver, to pull the woman to safety. But the order, do not help them, do not engage. The man reached the woman. Her scream was cut short as he lunged, teeth bared. I slammed my fist against the dashboard, helpless, furious. We watched, trapped in our ambulance, as the scene devolved into carnage. Other infected, drawn by the screams, emerged from the gridlocked traffic, converging on the initial attack. It was a feeding frenzy, and we, the paramedics, the helpers, were ordered to sit and watch. The wrongness of it felt like bile rising in my throat. "This is insane," Chloe whispered, her face pale. We took an oath. "I know." My voice was, "But look at them. Did you see his eyes, the way he moved? That wasn't just an injured driver in shock." I pointed to another infected staggering nearby, missing half its jaw, still moving, still hunting. What could we even do? More military vehicles roared past on the opposite side of the highway, heading downtown. Helicopters thudded overhead. The city was descending into chaos, and the official response seemed to be, observe and contain. Contain the infected, or contain the uninfected with them. We need to get off this highway, I decided, throwing the ambulance into reverse, carefully maneuvering back down the shoulder. Forget the station. We need somewhere defensible, somewhere we can maybe actually help someone without getting eaten or court-martialed. The memory of my EMT instructor's voice echoed in my head. Scene safety is paramount. You can't help anyone if you become a patient yourself. But this felt like abandoning everything we stood for. The first day wasn't just the end of the world. It felt like the end of empathy, and we were forced to be spectators. Navigating. The side streets was marginally better than the highway, but only just. Abandoned cars, bodies, and the occasional shambling infected forced us into slow, careful detours. The radio was a mess of fragmented reports, panicked calls for help abruptly cut off, and increasingly frequent military comms discussing troop movements and sterilization protocols. That phrase sent a shiver down my spine. "Where are we going?" Chloe asked, scanning the buildings we passed. Windows were broken, some storefronts looted. A fire burned unchecked in a laundromat down the block. "Hospital's out," I said, thinking aloud. "Police station too, probably. Too many people, too. Much chaos. We need somewhere isolated, defensible, but with resources." Thought about our own station, Station 3. It was smaller, on the edge of a quieter residential area, brick construction, roll-down shutters on the bay doors. Back to our station. It's our best bet. Maybe some of the others made it back. We turned onto Chestnut Avenue nearing the station. We saw flashing lights ahead. Not police or ambulance, but fire truck. Engine 3, our station neighbors, was parked diagonally across the road, blocking access. But the truck was dark, engine off. No firefighters visible. "What the?" Chloe started. We pulled up cautiously. The truck's cab door was open. Dark. Stains smeared the running board. I killed our engine, listening. Silence except for the distant city sounds and a faint rhythmic thumping coming from inside the fire truck's crew cab. "Stay here," I whispered to Chloe, grabbing the heavy maglite from between the seats. It wasn't much of a weapon, but it was better than nothing. I moved toward the fire truck slowly, keeping low. The thumping continued. Thump, pause, thump, like someone weakly hitting the window. Peering through the driver's side window, I saw him, Gary, one of Engine 3's engineers, a guy I played poker with occasionally. He was slumped against the passenger door, head lolling. His uniform was soaked in blood, and a ragged bite mark gaped on his forearm. His fist was weakly hitting the window in that rhythmic thump. His eyes rolled towards me as I approached, clouded, vacant, the pupils already starting to show that terrifying red pinpoint. He let out a low, wet gurgle. My stomach lurched. Gary was turning. He was trapped in the cab, but for how long? I backed away slowly. We couldn't help him. The directive was clear, but leaving him there, knowing what he'd become. Mark, Chloe called softly from the ambulance. I shook my head, gesturing back towards the station. Engine 3 is compromised. He's gone. We need to get into the station now. We crept past the silent fire truck, the thumping from inside, a sickening counterpoint to our footsteps. Station 3 was just ahead. The bay doors were down, lights off. Looked secure, but as we reached the side entrance, the employee door, we found it slightly ajar. Fresh pry marks scarred the metal frame. Someone had forced their way in or out. "Hello?" I called cautiously, pushing the door open. "Anyone here? EMS." Silence. The entryway opened into the common room. Couches, TV, kitchenette, empty. But overturned chairs and scattered papers suggested a recent struggle. A trail of dark, viscous fluid led from the entryway towards the bunkroom hallway. The same fluid I'd seen leaking from the infected police officer in the tunnel. The same stuff Pete had shown me on his arm bandages at the toll booth. No, wait. That was a different story. My mind was racing, mixing up nightmares. This was my nightmare. The coppery smell of rot was heavy in the air here. "Clear the rooms?" Chloe whispered, drawing the trauma shears from her belt, the closest thing she had to a weapon. I nodded, hefting the maglite. We moved in textbook room-clearing formation, adapted for 2 people. Kitchen clear, bathroom clear, supply closet clear. We reached the bunkroom hallway. The fluid trail led to the 3rd door on the right, Captain Miller's bunk. The door was closed. Faint scratching sounds came from within. We glanced at each other. The directive: observe only, do not engage. But this was our station, our captain. We had to know. I signaled Chloe to cover me, then slowly turned the knob. It wasn't locked. I pushed the door open a crack. Captain Miller was inside, kneeling on the floor back to us. His shoulders shook with ragged sobs, or at least that's what it sounded like. Relief washed over me. "Cap, you okay? What happened?" He didn't turn. The sobbing continued, morphing into a wet, gurgling sound. Then slowly, he raised his head, twisting it around at an angle that made my spine crawl. His face, oh God. His jaw was unhinged, hanging slack, dark fluid drooling onto his uniform shirt. His eyes were gone, just empty sockets weeping the same blackish substance. But he was focused on us. He raised a hand, not in greeting, but in a jerky, grasping motion. The fingers twitched. I slammed the door shut, throwing my weight against it. "He's turned." Chloe didn't hesitate. She grabbed a heavy metal locker from the hallway and shoved it against the door, just as the captain, the thing that was the captain, slammed into it from the inside. The metal door buckled. "We have to secure this whole level," I said, breathing heavily. "The bay doors." We raced to the apparatus bay. The heavy roll-up doors were down, but the electronic controls were dead. No power. We found the manual chain hoists, thankfully still functional. Working together, we cranked the heavy chains, ensuring the locking pins engaged. The bay was secure. Then, the windows. High windows lined the upper walls of the bay, offering light but also potential access. They were reinforced but not unbreakable. We pushed rolling tool cabinets and stacks of spare tires against the walls beneath them, creating crude barricades. As we worked, the banging from the captain's room stopped. An unsettling silence descended again. "Where'd he go?" Chloe asked. Nervously, "Maybe gave up?" I offered, unconvinced. A crash from the common room answered my question. We ran back, weapons ready. The door to the common room, leading from the bunk hallway, hung open, ripped from its hinges. The locker lay on its side. The captain was gone. "He broke through," Chloe breathed. "Where is he?" We swept our lights around the common room. Empty. Kitchen empty. Then we heard it. Scraping sounds from the main entryway near the door we'd come through. The door leading outside. "He's trying to get out." We rushed to the entryway. The fluid trail led right to the side door. We could hear him scrabbling at the metal, moaning. He was trapped inside with us, but trying to get out. Why? To spread the infection? To join the others? "What do we do?" Chloe asked, looking at the straining door. The directive flashed in my mind. Maintain perimeter, observe and report only. But the thing trying to escape was our captain, and it was trying to leave our secure location. Another crash from outside the station, closer this time. More sirens, more screams. The chaos wasn't fading, it was escalating. We reinforce this door, I decided. He stays in, we stay in. We wait. We dragged a heavy oak table from the common room, wedging it against the side door, adding our weight to hold it against the captain's frantic scrabbling. We were trapped in Station 3, besieged from within by our infected captain. While outside, the city succumbed to the code black contagion. The first day of the outbreak was drawing to a close, and our sanctuary had become a cage, shared with one of the very things they'd ordered us not to help, not to engage, but which we now had to contain. The irony was a bitter pill to swallow. We couldn't save him, but we couldn't let him leave either. Hours passed in near silence, broken only by the sounds from outside, and the occasional frantic scrabbling or low moan from the other side of the reinforced employee entrance door. The thing that was Captain Miller seemed to have settled into a state of intermittent agitation, sometimes quiet, sometimes scratching weakly at the metal. We stayed in the apparatus bay, the largest, most open space, giving us room to maneuver if anything breached our inner defenses. The emergency lights cast long, distorted shadows from the massive ambulance and the fire engine that still occupied its usual spot, a silent monument to the crew we now presumed were lost. We found some emergency rations in the ambulance, high-calorie protein bars and bottled water, enough for a day or two. We checked our medical supplies. Bandages, antiseptics, IV kits, useful for treating conventional injuries, but utterly useless against the bite of the infected. The irony wasn't lost on me. Surrounded by life-saving equipment, yet helpless against the tide of death and undeath, consuming the city. "What do you think this is, really?" Chloe asked, breaking the long silence. She sat perched on the ambulance's rear bumper, trauma shears resting loosely in her lap. "Virus? Government experiment gone wrong?" "Does it matter?" I replied tiredly, leaning against a stack of tires. "Whatever it is, it's here. The why doesn't change the what." I thought about the Code Black directive. Observe only. Do not help. Someone knew more than they were telling us. Someone had decided that the victims, the infected, were beyond help, liabilities to be contained or eliminated. "But it's wrong, Mark," Chloe insisted, her voice low but intense. "Leaving people to die, watching them get torn apart. Our captain locked in that room. Maybe there's a cure, maybe they're working on something." "Maybe," I conceded. But that directive came from the EOC, confirmed by the State Health Department, high level. They made a call based on information we don't have. Maybe they know something about the transmission. Maybe even being near them is dangerous. The thought of airborne transmission, dismissed as inconclusive on the radio, sent a shiver down my spine despite the relative warmth of the bay. We kept our standard N95 masks on, more out of habit than any real certainty they'd help against an unspecified contagion. A sudden crash from the front of the station startled us. Not the employee door where the captain was, but the main bay doors. Heavy, rhythmic impacts began to shake the massive roll-up doors, Boom, boom, boom. They found us, Chloe breathed, grabbing her shears. I picked up the mag light and the fire axe I'd retrieved earlier. We moved to the edge of the bay, peering through the small, reinforced window set into one of the doors. In the flickering orange glow from the distant fires, we could see them. At least a dozen infected pressed against the doors, some mindlessly, slamming their bodies against the corrugated steel, others just standing there, heads tilted, moaning. More were shambling up the driveway, drawn by the noise. The chain locks will hold for a while, I said, trying to project confidence I didn't. But not indefinitely against that many. Boom, crack. One of the lower panels on the door buckled inward. Pale fingers clawed through the opening. We need a fallback, Chloe stated, scanning the bay. Where can we go if they breach? The station layout offered few options. The roof access was via an external ladder, suicidal. The basement held the infected captain and the tunnel we'd sealed. That left the second floor, offices, sleeping quarters, separate from the captain's, a small gym. Upstairs, I decided. Stairwells narrow, easier to defend. We can barricade the door at the top. Another panel on the bay door splintered. More hands reached through. Their collective moans rose in volume, a hungry chorus anticipating entry. Now! We sprinted across the apparatus bay to the stairwell door at the far end. Behind us, the sounds of metal groaning and wood splintering intensified. We pounded up the stairs, the sound of our boots echoing in the narrow concrete shaft. Reaching the second-floor landing, we slammed the heavy fire door shut and threw the bolt. "Find something to brace it," I yelled. Chloe dragged a heavy, metal filing cabinet from a nearby office while I kept watch through the door's small wire mesh window. Figures were already swarming the base of the stairs, looking up, moaning. We shoved the cabinet against the door, adding a desk for good measure. The first impacts hit the door just as we finished. The second floor was quieter than the bay had been. Power was out up here too, plunging the offices into near darkness, lit only by the emergency exit signs and the ambient glow from the burning city filtering through the windows. We cleared the floor quickly. Empty offices, deserted sleeping quarters, a silent gym. It felt abandoned, frozen in time just before the collapse. "We need supplies," Chloe said, checking the empty vending machines in the small break room. "Water, food. Those rations won't last long." "Later," I replied, moving toward the main front-facing office, the one with the best view of the street and the bay doors below. "First, we assess." Through the office window, the scene below was horrifying. The horde outside the station had grown significantly. Dozens, maybe 50 or more, pressed against the bay doors, a writhing mass of decaying flesh and mindless hunger. The doors were visibly buckling, panels tearing. They wouldn't hold much longer. Further down the street, more infected shambled, drawn by the commotion, and fires burned brighter across the city skyline. My eyes scanned the surrounding buildings, looking for signs of other survivors, escape routes. That's when I saw movement on the roof of the warehouse across the street, figures silhouetted against the fiery glow. Soldiers, setting up equipment. A sniper rifle? No, something larger. Some kind of launcher? "Chloe, look," I pointed. We joined me at the window, peering into the darkness. "Military. Are they finally clearing the area?" As we watched, one of the soldiers raised the launcher, aiming not at the infected swarming our station, but directly at the station itself. "Get down!" I tackled Chloe, pulling her away from the window just as a deafening whoosh sounded, followed milliseconds later by a tremendous explosion that rocked the entire building. The second floor erupted in flames and smoke. The bay doors below vanished in a fireball. Incendiary ordnance. They weren't trying to clear the infected. They were trying to burn us out. The Code Black Directive. The order not to help. The containment. The sterilization protocols mentioned on the radio. It all clicked into place with horrifying clarity. They weren't just letting the infected die. They were ensuring everyone in the contaminated zones died. Witnesses, potential carriers, first responders who knew too much, all expendable. They were sanitizing the situation, burying the truth under fire and rubble, and we were inside, the target zone. The order, "Do not help them," wasn't just about the infected. It was about anyone caught on the wrong side of the quarantine line. We were them. The fire spread with terrifying speed, consuming the second floor. Smoke filled the hallway, choking us. The heat intensified. The barricaded stairwell door offered no escape back down. The infected horde below, momentarily scattered by the blast, was already regrouping, drawn now by the fire. "The roof," Chloe coughed, pointing toward the emergency access ladder at the end of the hall. It was our only chance. We scrambled through the smoke, heat searing our lungs. The ladder led to a heavy roof hatch. I prayed it wasn't locked from the outside. Throwing my shoulder against it, it gave way with a groan. Cool night air hit my face, a blessed relief from the choking smoke. We pulled ourselves onto the flat, gravel-covered roof, just as flames began licking up the stairwell behind us. From the roof, the full horror of the situation unfolded. Fires burned across Columbus. Distant gunfire still echoed. Military helicopters circled overhead, their searchlights sweeping the streets below, not looking for survivors but targets. And below us, surrounding the burning station, the horde grew. Attracted like moths to the flames, their moans a constant, terrifying dirge. We were trapped on a burning roof, surrounded by the dead, hunted by the living who saw us only as part of the contamination to be cleansed. The first 12 hours were over. We had followed the directive, we hadn't helped them. And now, ironically, tragically, we were them. Abandoned, cornered, with nowhere left to run. The city burned, and the only certainty was that the dawn, if we lived to see it, would bring no rescue. The heat radiated from the roof access hatch, flames already visible through the opening. The fire was spreading fast through the station's older wooden roof trusses. We didn't have much time. "Across the street," Chloe pointed, coughing from the lingering smoke. "The warehouse roof. It's lower, maybe a 20-foot jump." I scanned the distance, the gap between buildings. It was more like 30 feet, maybe 35, onto a potentially unstable warehouse roof in the dark, with smoke obscuring our view. Too far. We'd break our legs if we even make the jump. "What other choice do we have, Mark?" she yelled over the roar of the fire and the growing moans from below. "Burn up here or get eaten down there." She was right, but the jump was suicide. My eyes swept the rooftop, desperately searching. Firefighting equipment storage box, empty. Maintenance shed, locked tight. Then I saw it, coiled near the air conditioning units, thick and heavy. The station's old decommissioned fire hose. It was canvas, probably rotten, but maybe, just maybe. The hose. I ran over, pulling at the heavy coil. If we can anchor it. The roof edge facing the warehouse had a sturdy vent pipe housing bolted to the structure. Here. We struggled, with the heavy hose, its canvas stiff and smelling of mildew. Finding the brass coupling, I looped it around the vent housing, praying the metal would hold. Chloe helped me feed the rest of the hose over the edge. It reached, dangling maybe 5 feet above the warehouse roof. "It'll hold our weight?" Chloe asked doubtfully. "It has to," I replied grimly. "You first, rappel down, hand over hand, don't look down. I'll anchor it up here." She hesitated for only a second, then nodded, gripping the hose. "See you on the other side." She swung herself over the parapet, canvas groaning under her weight. I braced myself against the vent housing, anchoring the hose with my body, watching her slow descent. Flames licked higher from the stairwell hatch, the heat becoming unbearable. Below, the infected swarmed, some looking up, attracted by the movement. Chloe reached the warehouse roof, landing heavily but safely. She looked up, waving frantically. "Come on!" Now it was my turn. The roof beneath my feet felt hot. Smoke billowed around me. I took a deep breath, gripped the hose, and swung myself over the edge. The drop felt sickeningly long. My hands burned against the rough canvas. I tried to control my descent, using my boots against the station wall, but the angle was awkward. Below the infected mast, their faces turned upward, moans rising in a hungry chorus. Halfway down, the hose ripped. Not completely, but a long tear appeared near the top coupling where the canvas had frayed against the metal edge of the roof parapet. It held but barely, sagging under my weight. I slid faster, losing my grip, the rough canvas tearing skin from my palms. I hit the warehouse roof hard, pain shooting up my legs, the wind knocked out of me. Chloe dragged me away from the edge just as the hose finally gave way completely, falling limply onto the roof beside us. We lay there for a moment, gasping, watching the station burn across the gap. The roof structure groaned, then collapsed inward with a roar, sending a shower of sparks and flaming debris into the night sky. The infected below surged toward the collapse, momentarily distracted. "We made it," Chloe breathed, though her voice shook. "For now." I pushed myself up, ignoring the pain in my legs and hands. "We're still exposed up here." The warehouse roof was flat, covered in gravel and ventilation units. It offered temporary elevation, but no real cover. We needed to get down, get moving again. We found a roof access ladder near the far edge, leading down into the darkness of the warehouse below. The warehouse interior was vast, cavernous, filled with rows upon rows of shelving stacked high, with indeterminate cargo wrapped in plastic. Emergency lights provided minimal illumination, casting long, eerie shadows. It was blessedly quiet compared to the chaos outside. "We should rest here," Chloe suggested, slumping against a stack of pallets. "Just for a bit." I shook my head, checking my borrowed maglite. No, they saw us come this way. The military, I mean. They torched the station. They might come looking for survivors to sanitize. The word felt like poison on my tongue. And the infected will eventually be drawn this way once the fire dies down. We keep moving. We found an unlocked loading dock door at the rear of the warehouse. Outside, a deserted industrial park, chain-link fences, empty lots, more warehouses. And crucially, access roads leading west, away from the city center quarantine zone. "Where do we go?" Chloe asked, looking out at the desolate landscape. "West," I said, remembering the fragmented radio reports. "Fort Leonard Wood, maybe? Springfield. Somewhere the military might actually be protecting, not purging." It was a vague plan, based on fragments of information, but it was better than nothing. We found an abandoned delivery truck in one of the lots, keys still in the ignition. Another small miracle in a night full of horrors. As I hotwired the ignition, a skill I never thought I'd need as a paramedic, Chloe searched the cab, finding a road atlas and 2 bottles of water. The engine sputtered to life, the sound echoing loudly in the pre-dawn quiet. We pulled out onto the service road heading west, leaving the burning glow of Columbus behind us. The sky was beginning to lighten in the east. We had survived the first 12 hours. We had defied the order. We hadn't helped the infected, but we hadn't simply observed either. We had run, hidden, fought, and somehow, against all odds, made it through. But the image of Captain Miller's empty eyes, Gary's weak thumping, the faces pressed against the ambulance window, the sound of the dispatcher signing off for the last time, those wouldn't leave me. The physical threat might be behind us for the moment, but the moral injury, the weight of the choices made and not made, felt heavier than any jump bag. They told us not to help them. What they didn't tell us was how to live with ourselves afterward, in a world where helping could get you killed, but not helping felt like a different kind of death. The sun rose on a broken world, and we drove west, haunted by the faces of those we were forced to leave behind, wondering if survival was worth the price we'd already paid.